Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Before the Four. I'm digital host A.J. Wuest, hoping everyone is having a fantastic Monday. If you're new to Before the Four, you were just kind of scrolling on Facebook or scrolling on YouTube, I want to welcome you. This is just a little interactive live stream where I go over WAFF's top stories before our evening newscast. This is before the 4 p.m. newscast. And of course, if you are returning to Before the Four, I want to thank you for spending just a little bit of your afternoon with me. Now, we had a little bit of a slower news day today. Not as much happened today, but of course there were some awesome stories and some not so awesome stories that we will be discussing today. But without further ado, we will start things off. And we'll start first with what our reporters are currently covering today. Now, 48's Matthew King, he's out in Henniger right now assessing the damage from the severe storm last month. Today is the first day the city has planned a citywide cleanup put on by a group of contractors. Now, Matthew has been speaking with people at Crowder Gulf. It's a disaster recovery and debris management company, and he will be updating you on the latest of the storm cleanup efforts out in the Henniger area coming up in just a few minutes. And also, staying on the topic of weather, it was certainly a scary night for some out there in Colbert County last week. I believe this was Thursday of last week when that severe weather came through. I believe it was a confirmed tornado in Franklin County, its neighboring county. And the tornado siren suddenly went out ahead of the severe storm. Now, 48's Aria Pond, she has been speaking with EMA officials today, and we'll be bringing you updates on how far along officials are to repairing these crucial storm sirens. And that's what our reporters are working on at the moment. In other news, I will talk now about some of today's top stories that we reported on our website, waff.com. And this is the first story. Now, this is out in Morgan County. A man is now in jail after authorities say he caused a standoff with deputies late last night. Now, according to the sheriff's office, deputies tried to pull over a semi-truck they say they saw driving recklessly. Now, he was heading north on I-65, and when deputies tried to pull the semi-truck over, deputies say he fled until he reached the Tennessee River Bridge, and then he refused to exit his truck. Eventually, the suspect, who was later identified as Anthony Landrum, eventually was taken out of his truck and later arrested. Now, Landrum was charged with attempting to elude, reckless driving, and unlawful possession. He was booked into the Morgan County Jail on a $900 bond. And just earlier today, we spoke with Morgan County Sheriff Mike Swafford, and this is what he had to say about the situation.
The threat, though, is, it's a large vehicle, many other motorists on the road. Trying to, number one, keep them out of harm's way and get the vehicle stopped is our, primary objective, so that, there's not more tragic aspects of the story. Thankfully, none of that took place. But then the second part is just coordination. Hartselle was able to shut down the interstate there near Hartselle, so that, cars were not able to be around the truck. And then, when it came to a stop on the bridge, we coordinated with Decatur for them to stop southbound traffic. Because we didn't know the person's intentions or what they were willing to do. And then that's when law enforcement on scene were able to block off the bridge and then begin negotiating with him to try to get him out of the vehicle.
And again, that was Sheriff Mike Swafford. But now in Madison County, a man is out on bond after deputies say he was involved in multiple car break-ins. Now, according to the Madison County Sheriff's Office, Christopher Green was arrested Friday after deputies identified him as the suspect in numerous car break-ins in the Macedonia Road area. Now, Green is charged with 2 counts of unlawful breaking and entering a vehicle. He was released Saturday from the Madison County Jail on a $5,000 bond. Now, in a bit of lighter news, the town of Ardmore is ready to go pulling. That's right, the annual Ardmore Truck and Tractor Pull is coming back to town this weekend. But that's not all that will be there, of course. A Louisiana entertainer by the name of Crazy Cajun, with addition to some good eats from many vendors. And just saying that is making me hungry right now, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't had lunch yet. But it truly sounds like it'll be a bit for everyone to enjoy. And today I actually got to interview Mr. Eli Wallace and Mrs. Caitlin Gooch as the two previewed everything that will be there. And here it is right here.
So we started the pool 4 years ago under me and Daryl being over the promoter. The pool has been a long-time pool in Ardmore. It was promoted by the Lions Club for many years. They let the pool go, and we ended up picking it back up. We wanted to maintain the hometown event. You know, pooling's a big thing here locally, and we wanted somewhere for our local competitors to have to go. So we picked it up, and it's just kind of progressed from there.
Well, very awesome. And I think when I was younger, I went to a tractor pull once, and I just remember just being amazed by it. I remember like the tractor was tipping over, and I'm like, this is super awesome. Like my 10-year-old self was just amazed by it all. So it's super cool. I would love to definitely check it out sometime.
Yeah.
But where do all the donations for this event go to?
So the donations go to multiple groups local to Ardmore. We do support the Lions Club. They receive proceeds off of the event. The Boys and Girls Club help with parking and different things, so they get donations from the pool. And then the local fire department, they help us in many different ways throughout the pool, track prep, stuff like that, so they always receive donations from the event.
And that was such a great interview. But we heard from Eli, so now we will hear from Caitlin on what she had to say. She is actually a puller herself. She competes in the event. So let's take a listen to what Caitlin had to say.
Drivers of all ages, that's something that's really unique, I think, to this sport, is we have a bunch of young drivers all the way up to older drivers. We have female drivers like myself, and we also have guys that drive. This is a guy-dominated sport, I do have to say, so I do like to give our girls a shout-out every once in a while, just because sometimes they don't get the recognition, and they're just as good and just as competitive as the guys are.
That's right. And I love that you mentioned you're a driver.
Yes, sir.
What kind of feelings do you get when you're like behind a tractor, you're pulling something? Like what goes through your mind? Like I'd imagine it's
a lot.
There's a lot of adrenaline there.
Yes, tons of adrenaline. I drive a super modified two-wheel drive truck called the Untouchable. It's a 1934 Ford Packard style vehicle, and it's a lot. It's like I said, it was extremely loud. People ask us all the time, do you still have to wear ear protection? Yes, because where we're sitting in our vehicles, our motors are very close to us, so all of that is very, very loud. For a lot of people, that can be almost overwhelming. But you also feel everything that vehicle feels. So if it's pulling a certain way, you feel that. You can feel how powerful your engines are, and you can also feel when things go wrong. So there's a whole lot of different emotions that can go into that. Obviously, adrenaline is probably the number one, but also it takes a lot of focus and a lot of being in tune with your vehicle. People don't realize that. It's kind of, sometimes I like to say, it's kind of like riding a horse. You know, you have to be in tune with that animal. It's the same thing. You have to be in tune with these beasts as well, because if not, they can get the upper hand on you as well.
Very, very awesome interview. And you can watch that full 48 Now video on our website, WAFF.com. You'll just go to the digital show section and then finally head over to 48 Now for more information about the Ardmore Truck and Tractor Pull. Now in some state news, down in Birmingham, an immigration advocacy group is speaking out against President Biden's recent announcement of stiffer restrictions at the southern border. Now let's take a listen.
Thousands of people who are trapped in Mexico, waiting months for an appointment for asylum, and this is just going to make that wait even longer.
The Alabama Coalition for Immigration Justice says it's opposed to President Joe Biden's recent executive order, which stops people from claiming asylum when more than 2,500 people are apprehended at ports of entry along the southern border every day for a week. People won't be able to apply for asylum at the border again until that number drops to 1,500. The group believes it will have dangerous consequences.
They are very vulnerable and they're desperate. And so our biggest concern with this is that, people are going to try to cross if they're desperate enough, or they're going to turn to other options like sending their children alone, unaccompanied.
ACIJ says they, along with others, are pushing back, advocating for those at the federal level to rethink the policy and look at other options.
We're all going to be working together to continue to ask, everyone in Congress to come together and finally, reform this immigration system.
Now in more state news, University of Alabama students will see a significant increase in tuition rates after their Board of Trustees unanimously approved an increase. Now after the decision, UA students' tuition will rise as much as 4%. So let's take a listen to what Dr. Dana Keith, UA Vice President of Finance and Administration, had to say about the increase.
To ensure we can continue to attract the best and brightest faculty and staff, we must pay market competitive salaries. Alongside that, we are also facing rising costs related to our share of the mandatory state retirement plan and other employee benefits. And above all else, we must continue to support students.
And now a national story affecting so many people. How early is it to start thinking about retirement? How do I start a retirement plan, and will I ever be able to eventually retire? These are some common questions so many are asking themselves on a daily basis. And if you're one of those people watching right now, also asking those questions, this video that I'm about to play right now, it's for you. Let's watch.
88-year-old Jacqueline James taught public school in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania for 3 decades before retiring in 1998.
You worked for 30 years, you paid into your pension every month.
Every single check you pay into Social Security and your pension. You knew you were never going to make a lot of money, and you knew that you were building your retirement.
Yet, through a quirk of state law, she and about 70,000 other retired public workers in Pennsylvania have had zero cost of living adjustments in over 20 years. The $25,000 a year she gets now is the same it was then, while the cost of living has nearly doubled. She's given up cable TV, cut out some of her favorite foods, even stopped buying mulch for her flower beds.
I do less and less and less. I'm always figuring, what can I stop doing now? What can I stop doing now?
Of course, most of today's workers won't have pensions. According to the Federal Reserve, just 22%. Far more common now are retirement accounts like a 401k, where the burden is on you to save enough to last a lifetime. Just a ways up the road from Stroudsburg, Victor Martins and his son Jonathan run a family construction business.
Do you feel ready to retire now in this economy?
No.
You've got a 401k and an IRA?
Yes.
Do you think that'll be enough for you to retire on someday?
I don't think so, personally.
And that's even though they are saving. Nearly half of American families have no savings in retirement accounts at all. That retirement insecurity explains some of today's pessimism in a strong economy, says economist Teresa Ghilarducci.
We don't have a pension system that's designed to last for as long as people are going to last, to 90s and 100s. We're putting people in little boats and floating them off into the ocean and saying you have to take care of yourself.
For many, Social Security is a lifeboat, but was never meant to be the sole source of retirement income. On Victor Martin's job sites, business is brisk, but he worries about the future.
We've diversified ourselves. I've got an IRA. We're putting money back into the business, so hopefully I could still take a paycheck from that.
Diversification is no longer an option for Jacqueline James.
I'm disturbed, I'm disgusted, and I don't know that I can do anything about it.
She's left to hope the law changes so she can finally get a raise. Christine Romans, NBC News, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Christine. Certainly a frightening situation right there. But If you watch tonight's forecast from 48 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis, chances are he's going to tell you it's getting hot out there. And with summer approaching quickly, I hope you are all enjoying some much needed time in the sun. However, it is also super important to know the risks of too much heat and how it can affect your body. Let's take a listen.
And I think it's more of an emotional piece than it is a physical acclimation that we have to get around to. It's more about ourselves acclimating to a new temperature and what that means in terms of our outside activities. And we're going to be curtailing some of those activities perhaps sooner than we would have in other seasons when the temperature rose later in the summer.
Dr. David Weissmiller sitting down with me Thursday. The family and community medicine professor at the UNLV Kirk-Kerkorian School of Medicine says heat exhaustion can happen with these triple-digit temperatures. Physical effects can include nausea or confusion. It's a result of not enough fluids in the body. Dr. Weissmiller says the body will react and essentially prioritize which organs need to function to stay alive during that type of exposure.
There's always going to be blood shunted to the organs that are most important. Our brain and our heart are always going to take priority as other things start to show compromise. So when you're feeling it, you may not be experiencing any type of organ issues yet. However, that is where things are headed if you don't get adequate perfusion.
Now let's talk about the stories you're just not going to want to miss. Now, an update on Starliner. It is certainly staying in the news. An expert's guide on how to survive a shark attack, and the latest on Hunter Biden in court. These are all the stories that you're just not going to want to miss in tonight's newscast. Now, if you are returning to the show, you're returning to Before the Four, you know exactly what time it is now. And of course, it is time for Facebook Fun. Now, if you're a newbie, you're going to want to stick around because you are in for a treat. It is time for Facebook Fun. So let's pull up WAFF's Facebook question today. And the question was, what is an item you think is wildly overpriced? And we had quite a bit of comments on this. You guys have found a lot of items that you think are overpriced. So let's see what you all had to say. Now, Rebecca, she said Stanley Cups. I'm curious, are you talking about the Stanley Cup, like the popular cup that's going around, or are you talking about the one the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers are trying to get right now? Which Stanley Cup? I think both are a little bit overpriced, in my opinion. But Rebecca, thank you so much for commenting. I greatly appreciate it. Adrian said chips, nothing but air. I agree 100%. They need to add a few chips to that airbag. I agree 100%. Adrian, thank you for commenting. Diana Lawson, she said groceries. Yes, I think groceries are definitely overpriced right now. Ayoka said coffee and soft drinks. I'll add Red Bull to that as well. I'm an avid Red Bull drinker, and yeah, it's getting pricey. It's hurting my wallet a little bit. But Ayoka, thank you for commenting. And then finally, Rachel Lewis said breathing. And I'm just going to end it right there. But anyway, that is all the time I have for today's Before the Four. I want to thank you all for sticking around with me and spending a little bit of your Monday afternoon with me. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's newscast. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you download the 48 digital app and turn on those push notifications and get the breaking news delivered directly to you. Same goes for the 48 First Alert weather app. But that is all the time I have. Thank you all, and you know how we like to end it. Thanks for watching. You all have a great night.